Hey listeners, welcome to today's episode of Show Me Your Hustle. Today I'm sitting down with Janel. Janel, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're currently working on?
Absolutely. I just finished a 25-year career as a nonprofit leader. I started in fundraising and moved into the CEO position and helping our community improve lives, and I love doing that. But in the midst of that, I found that I have a real joy and passion for speaking and teaching and training, and that's really where I am. So in July, I left that career and I started my own company, leaning into leadership development, training, workshops, keynote speaking, and I'm loving it.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Give me a little bit of background. So 25 years.
Yeah.
What was that career path like?
So I started in fundraising. Everywhere
Okay.
I went, I tended to lean into how do I help nonprofits. It started in fundraising and then promoted it to be the CEO. And there is where I really leaned into leadership development, developing leaders that were volunteering with us, developing my staff. And then it blossomed out into the community where I joined a leadership class that I became faculty on. And I loved every minute of helping leaders develop and grow and just see their potential.
Awesome. So moving through that whole career path and that progression into CEO, what do you feel like was the first win as a CEO that you're like, okay, I can do this?
Wow. Honestly, it was, being able to turn a dysfunctional team around,
Okay.
leading with Pat Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and then seeing people really successful, and then seeing how I could, and using Pat's words, galvanize people to not only give money, but to lean into their community, lean into their organization, lean into their position, and make a real difference.
So you just shook me a little bit. We've actually, for our listeners, we've never met. It was just LinkedIn. So at the startup I'm currently at, we use the 5 dysfunctions as a team as our complete sounding board. So every new hire reads it. Everyone goes through the full training. We spend a lot of time in our yearly offsites on it. So really cool to hear somebody talk about that. Sorry, that just derailed the whole conversation, but just fun to see that go there. So back to your road. What do you feel like was the biggest lesson or road that you took in your 25 years?
I guess I'm going to use what's been the most impactful in the last 4 years.
Okay, perfect.
I loved what I was doing and I leaned in, but I felt like something was missing and I was losing my joy. I was losing energy. As CEO, people kept looking to me for the new ideas and the new inventions, and I was just like, that's not what I want to do. I don't know. I've used them all in 25 years. I didn't have anything more. But I really felt like I was failing. But to pull Pat back in here, Pat Lencioni, fast forward all these years, he created a book called The 6 Dysfunctions of a Team, and it changed my life. I realized that my genius was in discerning what to do next and to galvanize people to do what's next. My frustrations was in that wondering and inventions place of work. And so I was like, well, what brings me joy and energy? What are my geniuses? And what happened was I learned that it was teaching. It was galvanizing. It was bringing people together to move forward, but not in creating and inventing. So ironically, I ended up starting my own company, but that's not my focus, is the creating. It's leaning in and helping people like yourself really understand that they're not failing where they are. They just may not be leaning into their geniuses and their energy. And when you lean into what you're really good at and you love, no day is a day of work. Nothing is a day of work.
I love that. Let's dive deeper there. So, how did you develop this thought process and how did you get here?
So one of my board members went to a conference, saw Pat Lencioni introduce his new concept, his new model, the 6 types of working genius. She said, I really think you'd enjoy that, because she knew I loved to teach new models and things like that. I love DISC and Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders. I love all of that. And then, so I listened to Pat's podcast and I was like, wow, this model is incredible. And when I would do DISC at work, when I would do Myers-Briggs, the staff would always say, it's getting into my personality, my personal side. This has nothing to do with work. And what I loved about the Working Genius, it was all about work. And
Yeah.
you could figure out where your geniuses are, where your frustrations are. And some people feel like they're failing or they're not appreciated. It's just that they haven't been recognized for what they provide at work. And Working Genius, it spells widget. And so it says, do you get joy and energy from wondering, from inventing, from discerning, from galvanizing, from helping people, or from tenacity, finishing a project? And we walk through the whole set, and people walk out going, now I know why so and so annoys the heck out of me, because they are
I
in
just
my
had that same thought.
right. And that was my aha moment. Is I worked with somebody. My frustrations are wonder and invention, and wonder, they are so important, but they just wonder. And sometimes they don't wonder at the right time, and it frustrates me. And I
Yeah.
realized I don't need to be frustrated. I just need to use their skill, their joy, their energy in a different way, and to fill them where I don't want to do it. So I need to look for the creators. And then once they create something, I'll sell it. I'll talk about it. I'll engage people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're consulting now and educating, what trends are you seeing? AI is taking over, it's knocking on everyone's doors. So what trends are you seeing within the people side?
I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of burnout. I think there's a lot of people searching, sometimes on their own when they have the ability to leave a job and do something different. And sometimes it's mandatory because they've been laid off, they've been furloughed, they've been let go. And so I'm seeing a lot of people reimagining who they are and what they're good at and what gives them joy and energy. And so if we can continue giving out tools like Working Genius and others, and being facilitators or coaches, helping people find their joy again. I was talking to someone earlier and she said she was just burnt out. And she's a hard worker and a great worker. We don't want to lose these individuals in the world. So I'm seeing positivity. AI can be a big part of that. You can go right into AI and say, here's what I love to do, what jobs, or where should I get back to my community, or how can I be an impact where I am.
Yeah. So I feel you see hope.
Yep.
I feel like the layoffs I read a stat the other day that it's 1.1 million layoffs in the tech sector this year, and we're not even through this year. So, a lot of people, I think LinkedIn has become a graveyard of that, it's sad. With that, I think you see a lot of leaders and managers taking on IC work as well and have gotten away from what does my one-on-ones really look like now? I've noticed that for myself. I really struggle to find mind share to have those really deep one-on-ones because I'm I've been in meetings all day and my IC work still has to happen and my TDAT, all of this stuff. And I'm like, what do you need from me? What do you want? And it's like, that's not effective. That's not deep enough to grow people.
Do you work from home majority?
I do.
Do you work?
Yep.
And that is sometimes harder to connect, just being the physical presence. It really brings us closer to people. It does work if you work remotely, but I've seen that be a big change in that connection. You're losing the connection. Getting to know people, you feel like you get just right down to work instead of spending more time. It's a lot of times wasted a lot of times. But that relationship you build with each other builds trust. And that's the start of work, is trust.
Yeah. What would you say for remote leaders is the biggest thing with the one-on-one time and how to really value that time, make the most out of it?
I think and I think you are too, a fan of Brene Brown. And Strong Ground, her new book, really dives into some of the things to do. And it's being able to be vulnerable, and so hey, how are you? Oh, you're good. Okay. All right. So how are, and you just say, we're Americans. So we just say, how are you? No. Sometimes we need to lean in and say, hey, Ashley, how are you? And sometimes as leaders, we have to lead with vulnerability. We have to lead with some of the things to share, I'm feeling a little disconnected from everybody. What are your thoughts? Not just being tell me all your dark secrets. As leaders, we have to be vulnerable and learn that that's not oversharing. There's a difference.
Right.
And really being able to connect with folks, take the time and not just dive into the work. So you got to put in the time.
Yeah. What would you say some of the hurdles that you're seeing as you're coaching people right now? Good.
Lack of direction, that they feel like they should be further along. They feel like they should have different tools. A lot of discouragement for those that are looking for jobs. You put in the 200 resumes and you're like, I got no responses, or I'm not a good fit.
Right.
And hearing that over and over, you're a good fit and you can be a benefit. So I see that. But I'm also seeing a lot of people, like I said before, turning into their joy and turning into what would make them happy and taking a risk. There's a lot of risk taking right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it is scary when the job market is
Yeah.
flooded with so many people, but yet there's so many jobs. How do you find what's right? And then also people being a little nervous about getting another job and it having layoffs, or am I going to go right back into the same thing or do something completely different?
Right, right. How do you coach leaders through just this time in general where it's like everyone just kind of feels like they're staying afloat? Nobody really wants to rock the boat too much. It's just like survive. And if you're seeing that as well, or
Yeah. I don't know if I'm seeing that as much and people are talking to me about that as much.
mm-hmm.
Where I'm leaning in, it really is in that working genius space of coaching and teaching about working genius, and people starting to really think that while I am at work, like how do I work most efficiently with my supervisor, my leaders, the executive team, but also my coworkers or those who report to me? And how do I really get to know them? And for me, it's working genius because people have aha moments. Like, I had a workshop yesterday and we leaned in and we laughed because people were like, yeah, that's so you. And then they were like, oh, sorry. And they're like, no, I appreciate that because I don't want to do the work that you do. I don't come up with great ideas. I feed off your ideas. And then the person pepped up and like, oh, I do have great ideas. Oh, you value that? So it's talking about those things we value together. So I see that more where I am in my space of coaching and also teaching working geniuses, realizing that you have something to offer, and then your coworker saying, yeah, I really do appreciate that. Because you don't know. You don't always get that feedback.
Mm-hmm. What would you say the number one, you talked a little bit about trust, and that's where it all starts. How do you educate teams on building that?
Well, actually, it's funny you ask. I just did a workshop on that using Brene Brown's model of rumbling, of how do you rumble? And for me, a lot of things like that are about language.
Yeah.
The first thing that I teach people is to say, instead of like, why did you do that? What's wrong with you? Or what are you thinking? It's to start with the story I'm telling myself. Actually, the story I'm telling myself is you're late every day. And so the story I'm telling myself is you're not committed and you don't care about the job. But I don't, that doesn't seem like you. Tell me, am I right? Or
right.
And then the person can say, no, I have to drop my kids off every day by 7:45 and it's a 20-minute drive here. I'll never get here on time. Well, I didn't know that. Let's talk about changing your start time. Or, tell me more. Tell me what's happening. So it's using language that builds trust but doesn't put somebody on the defensive. What's wrong with you? That's
right.
Geez, nothing's wrong with me. It's like leaning in with curiosity. So I think when you also are brave enough to, as Brene says, rumble, hey, let's have a rumble, which means a real conversation. It's not a fight. So it's like, how do you lean in? And when you do those things, you build trust. Like, I'm feeling uncomfortable here and I don't know why it is. Can we talk a little bit about that? And then the person's like, yeah, let's talk about it, instead of, all right, you're being called into my office. Let's talk about your performance. Like, there's usually something underlying why someone's not performing. What is it?
It's funny that you say that, and because it's, as you're saying this, it's so simple and it sounds so kind that it's just like, hey, here's the story I'm telling myself what's happening. But where we foundationally have been taught to come at it is like, these are uncomfortable conversations, when in actuality, they're really not. It's just we haven't been trained as humans, to do that. And it's like, so many times we take the road that's like, what's wrong with you? Versus just sitting there in the kindness and clarity.
You just used the right words. It's sitting there. It's sitting in the messy middle. It's being brave enough to say it. Sit in the messy middle. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with silence, but some people process. You just need to sit in the messy middle, like you were saying,
Yeah.
and really show that I'm here. And it's sitting
Right.
across from somebody, but it's also not waiting until the problem is a problem. It's identifying this could go somewhere or you're confused and having it early rather than, well, it's your 1 year review. Let's talk about all the bad things you've done. And you're like,
Yeah.
I've done so many good things. So it's like
Yeah.
in the moment. Yeah.
Right.
It's bringing the
Okay.
human.
I love that. What is the weirdest skill that actually helps you? Like it's been like the one thing you're like, this grew me, but it's weird.
Huh, that's a good question. I'd have to really think about that. I don't know. I don't know. The only thing that comes to mind is I've spent the last 30 plus years working with middle schoolers in my church. And I just approach it as people are fun and just
Yeah.
bringing a smile and fun to a conversation. And I start with fun instead of the serious. Like we're just goofy people. We're just having a good
Yeah.
time. Let's be ourselves. I
Yeah.
also am a real nerd for icebreakers, and I know not everybody loves them, but they do something with building that trust. And so I guess that's my thing is I bring they're always like, oh, here she comes. Janelle's bringing an icebreaker, or I'm bringing something to get people to talk. But then we're laughing, we're talking, and we've shared something goofy with each other. So
Right.
I guess weird would be that. It would be just that I help people who are not outgoing become outgoing in the moment.
I love it. Well, Janelle, this was so fun. Thank you so much for sharing. You're awesome. And
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to follow along your story and please keep sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I will.